Today I'm going to go over better billing workflows, and specifically I'm going to talk about them from the context of hourly and flat rate. So I'll show you some live examples today of features within Clio. This will be a great starter session for those of you who are potentially new to walk through how that might look for your particular workflow. But even if you've been using Clio for a little while, this is going to be a great refresher session just to give you some tips and tricks, maybe if you haven't updated your workflow. So before I get into the meat of the presentation, I just want to give you a quick introduction. As I mentioned, my name is Alim, and I'm a product manager here at Clio. I have my email address up on the screen there, and that's intentional because I want you guys to send me emails. I want to hear from you. If you have questions, I want to hear from you. If you have concerns, you can come talk to me. And I'll skip through this quickly, but don't worry, I'll put my email address up again at the end of the presentation. So a little bit more, as I mentioned, I'm a product manager specifically working on billing features at Clio. And for those of you who aren't necessarily familiar with what a product manager does at a software company, I'm basically the engineer that doesn't do any more engineering. So I spend my time listening to our customers, figuring out what your pains are. I've been next door in the Clio labs listening to the feedback about how you guys use billing for Clio. And then I do things like research in the industry, look at the trends that are going on, and then finally craft all that into a strategy that we can work with our team of engineers on to actually get something built to solve some of your pains. So I really encourage you, please come talk to me, ask your questions, come visit me in the Clio labs. We'd love to hear from you guys. I've spent pretty much my entire career building software for professionals. So originally it started with digital advertisers, then I moved on to real estate agents, and now I get to work in the legal industry building software for you guys. And you might be able to tell, but I'm definitely a self-described nerd, and I really love that I get to bring my passion for technology to working with a customer base like you. So again, thank you for being here, and thank you for being excited about billing. So let's talk about the agenda of what I will go through today. The first thing that I'm going to do is give you a base of some of the vocabulary within Clio for what hourly and flat rate workflows might look like. So I'll build a little mental model of what that looks like, talk about our philosophy, and once we have some of the base vocabulary set, I'll talk about how we're going to get prepared for billing week. And when I say billing week, I'm referring to the period of time for most of you at the beginning of the next month when you're taking all the work that you've done, putting out invoices, and sending it out. So once we've got prepped for billing week, I'll talk about how we're actually going to walk through that billing process. And then finally, we will wrap up talking about post-billing week insights. Now, a couple clarifications. I'm not going to talk about leads or electronic billing as part of this session, nor am I going to talk about contingency style billing. But I'll put up a slide at the end talking about some of the sessions that are coming up later on that give you more detail about those if you're interested. And I'm also not going to get too much into Clio payments, which is another feature that we have that allows for credit card payments seamlessly through Clio. But I will talk a little bit about it. But the Clio payments team is here as well, as is the team from LawPay that powers Clio payments. So I'd encourage you to head over to Clio Labs, or if you see their booth around or see the personnel around, to ask them questions as well. All right, so let's kick things off and start by describing for you what the best billing week of your life might look like. So I want to paint a picture for you here of what you can expect from that best billing week. I think the first thing that a lot of you are probably going to resonate with is reduced stress. I know that generating bills, getting paid can be a stressful process, and what we can hopefully do is help automate a lot of that work. We know that as of this year's legal trend report, about 2.4 hours out of every day are spent on billable work. That's a lot of time that's spent doing things that you're not billing for. And if we're able to help you automate a lot of those menial tasks away, you can get back to spending your time the way that you want to or the way your firm wants you to. The second thing that you can expect to see is hopefully fewer write-offs. So if you have the details on your bill the way you want them and your clients are happy with them as well, hopefully there's less guessing of what's going on, there's less reconciliation later, there's less back and forth, resulting in confusion that might have you actually writing things off of your bill. So hopefully we're going to see fewer write-offs as well. The third thing you can expect to see is happier clients. If you went to the legal trends session that was happening, the number one thing that was expressed in terms of why people have trepidation when working with the legal profession is cost, unsurprisingly. And I like to think about your opportunity when you're presenting and preparing your bills as a way to justify value to the clients that you're actually working with. And if you can successfully do that, that results in happier clients. And when those clients are happy and you have your value justified to them, that means we get more money in the bank faster. So hopefully those are the things that we can expect to see out of this best billing week of your life. And the reason I put up this beach picture is because ultimately at the end of the day, this all boils down to you being able to spend the time that you have the way you want to, as opposed to within administration. So for me, that's wanting to spend my time on the beach. But for you, that can really be whatever it is that you need to see out of your billing workflows. All right, so let's talk about how I'm going to get you there. So I'll kick things off by going through a little bit of Clio's billing model. So this will give you an overview of what the stages actually look like when you're going through billing within Clio. So there's 4 main stages. The first one is detailed activities. So this is where you're categorizing and writing down your detailed activities and your expenses and your time that you're tracking. After that, once you have those down, you're going to go through the process of actually generating those bills. That's putting them together on the piece of paper, or putting them together on the PDF, or putting them together in the email format that's going to be sent out to your clients. Before you necessarily send them out, though, the third stage is optional, where you can go through the process of editing. Maybe your firm has an approval process you need to go through. You'll be able to seamlessly do the things you need to get that bill in the shape so that finally it's ready to be securely sent out to your customers. All right, so that's the billing model. And before we get into more of the actual features and workflows, I want to give you a little bit about the philosophy of what we try and do within billing in Clio. I know you and your colleagues are busy, so we try and make sure that we have time-saving features, and one of the key ways we do that is by trying to make the billing system flexible. So we'll allow you to do things like customize the way your bill actually looks to figure out what information you want to convey on that bill, and then we try and help those display preferences be set in a way that helps you convey the value that you want to in the clients in the way that hopefully is going to get you paid the quickest and hopefully let you convey that message of value in the most effective way for you specifically. We're also flexible in terms of how you're able to categorize your expenses. So features like activity categories allow you to specify the particular types of work that you're doing that you can later report on or show to your clients in those individual buckets to help make your life a little easier and a little bit more organized. And then also within those categories, specify rates specifically for the types of work you're doing within those buckets. So that's the first main philosophy. The second is bulk processing. So anytime there's an opportunity for you to save repeated steps of doing the same thing over and over and batch them into one action, we try and make sure that you can do that and save the time that comes with automating those processes. And the third philosophy of what we try and do is obviously make this fast. So if you can make quick updates or edits to your bill as you're going through your approval process or reviewing what's going on, then hopefully we can get you back to that time doing the things you want. And as I mentioned, we have features like Clio payments that allow you to accept credit cards and reduce other payment hurdles. So again, hopefully you can get those bills out the door, get them to your clients, and get paid quickly. All right. So with that philosophy out of the way, I'd now like to give you a little bit more of a walkthrough of what these stages look like in Clio's billing model. So the first one we're going to touch on here is the detailed activity stage. So I want to kick this off by asking you a question. And if you just let this sink in for a moment, when do you think billing week starts? And I'm not going to let that sink in for too long because I'm the kind of guy that likes to ask trick questions. Because billing week actually starts 4 weeks before your billing week. And what I mean by that is really anytime anyone in your firm is tracking activities or entering expenses, they're getting ready for billing week. That's basically the quality of the data that you put into the system, resulting in the quality of the data that you're going to get out in your bill. So I'd like to give you a bit of an analogy of how this might go wrong and the way I kind of think about this in terms of something in my everyday life. For me, it's kind of like doing the dishes, where you have the opportunity right after you eat to rinse them off, toss them in the dishwasher, but if you don't do that, they get gunked up, they get stuck on, they get piled up, and you're now creating a lot more work for yourself, potentially later on. So how this could go wrong results in things like a lack of detail when you're entering those activities and expenses, potentially needing to spend non-billable time later on trying to figure out what actually happened, trying to write the details that you need to justify to your client, and just going back and forth and basically wasting time. Like I said, that can also result in you having to write things off because you just don't necessarily know what it was that happened because it's so far gone from the time that you were actually working on it. So I'll show you in the actual Clio app when you're doing things like entering your time, what something like that might look like. So we might paint the picture of us being in a rush. Maybe it's the end of the month or end of the week. we're going through, we did some activity, and we're trying to think about what actually happened. If we're not sure, maybe we enter in a period of time. Maybe it's something like an hour, maybe it's 2, maybe it's short, but it's something that we're really uncertain about. We have the opportunity to connect it to our matter right now, but we might skip over that, which is going to result in a headache for us later on when we're trying to track what's going on. We also have the opportunity to categorize it as part of a category of activities, and if we skip over that, again, that's going to result in it being difficult to do reporting and other features later on that rely on that. And then we have the opportunity to enter the description of what it is we actually did that's going to end up going on your bill. And if we just enter a little bit of detail here, that's going to result in us potentially needing to try and remember what it was we were doing later on, or potentially have our client look at that and say, I'm not sure that I actually needed to pay for that. I'm not sure what that was. So that's an example of some of the bad things that can happen. If we talk about how good data entry might look like when you're entering your activities, I like to think about that in terms of you taking those dishes, tossing them straight in the dishwasher. And in the same way that hopefully at this point when it's billing week, you're able to press a button and generate your bills. Likewise, you're able to press that button on that dishwasher and just have the whole process go through smoothly. So one way that might look is by having activities that you create immediately. Just kind of common sense, taking detailed notes while it's fresh in your mind so that when it comes to generate that information, it's all there and prepared in the way that you need it to. Another way that might look is you using features like that activity category that I mentioned so that you can keep consistency, reduce typos, have that categorization ready for when you want to do your reporting or when you want to actually break down that information on the bill in a way that a client can understand well. And then we also have a feature that allows you to set up a rate hierarchy where you can choose to set the rate on a per user basis, on a per client basis, on a matter basis, on a whole bunch of ways so that when you're entering in your activities, it will automatically populate the appropriate rate so that you don't need to do that work later on trying to figure out who and what actually happened. So let's give you an example of how that might actually look. So here we are now on a time entry, and we'll see at the top here that we use the timer feature that's built in, so you can actually track down to the exact second how much time was spent. So no need to try and recall later on if you just take that initiative to set that up, and that exists within the app, not just here as well. We associated it with a matter, so when we try and generate our bills, that'll automatically categorize all of the matters that have unbillable activities, and we can just press a button to generate from there. We've put it into an activity category here for meetings, so we'll be able to use that for reporting, we'll be able to use that for bucketing. That'll make our bill flow go a lot smoother. And then we've entered a detailed description here, so that'll be easy for us to know what happened, that'll be easier for our other firm staff to know what happened when we're looking at this, and it'll be easier for our clients if we actually want them to be able to see that detailed description. And I should mention that this is a great place to enter detail, and I know that for some people, they're not necessarily going to want to display all of that detail on that bill, but that's something that when you're generating the bill, you can choose to edit later on, but it just really helps to have that context for you early on in the process. And then finally, the rate here we can see was categorized. So based on that activity, we had a rate that populated, and it shows us the activity rate there that will allow us to just skip from here and know that the right rate was entered. For those of you that do flat rate workflows, you can also set it up so that your flat rates are categorized either as an activity or as a matter. And here we see an example of where we're tracking time, and it's auto-populated that the rate for that is 0, so that that doesn't necessarily make its way through to the bill. Although, if you want to, it can. That activity can show up, or you can suppress that so that it just shows your flat rate for the fees that you're doing. And for those of you that are doing flat rate workflows as well, another reason that it's beneficial to track your time, even if you're not necessarily going to bill that way, is that you might want to be able to go back, see the time that you spent on these actual activities and figure out, am I spending my time in the right place? Am I charging the right thing for my flat rate activities? So that's a really handy tool for you, even if you're not necessarily charging by the hour. One question that might be occurring to you as I went through that is, wait, you're trying to get me to have an easier process by asking me to do more things when I'm entering my activities? And the answer to that is kind of. So You are definitely doing a little bit more work up front, but hopefully that's going to save you a lot of time down the road when it comes to the headaches that could happen during your billing week. But we do have some time-saving tools to help you reduce some of that workflow. So we have a whole bunch of integration partners as part of our platform. These specifically, Chromata, Time Manner, eBility, and a few others are time tracking platforms that install on your computer and will automatically try and categorize what you're spending your time on and present that to you in a way that will automatically pull through on Clio. So these are worth giving a try to if you're interested in trying to have the computer automatically track your time on your behalf. Other things we have are tools like our Clio Outlook add-in, which will let you go through the process of working directly within Outlook, but still being able to add activities, still being able to set up timers, being able to categorize your emails so that you don't necessarily have to be switching back and forth, but can still be tracking your activities while they're happening. We also have the Clio mobile application, so if you're on the go and don't necessarily have your computer in front of you, you can use that to start timers, to enter activities, and do the things that you need to do to make sure that it's still fresh in your mind and put directly in the system while you're going. And then we have features like text snippets. And our text snippets feature allows us to set up a short keyword that then expands out into a longer sentence or paragraph if you have repeated things that you're typing in over and over. So you can set that up and then maybe just customize a word or two out of that longer piece of text that you need to track. All right, so that was the phase of being able to enter our detailed activities. So now we're in billing week. This is the second phase of Clio's billing model, where we're actually going to generate those bills now. So this is where your prep work is paid off, but before we do that, I'm going to show you an example of what a bad bill might look like. So this is a bill where we see things like the date all being the same because we didn't actually go through, or it's something we did later on, and that's going to result in confusion. We see the descriptions being extremely vague. Again, that's going to result in confusions both internally and externally. And we see details where the quantity is obviously erroneous, something like 40 tracked when we see the rest of the quantities are much lower than that for a phone call. So definitely a place where we could see disputes happen and just wasting time. We also potentially have the opportunity to not have all of our activities tracked here because we didn't do things like associated to a matter, things that are just going to make the system not operate as efficiently as it could. So the alternative to that, let's talk about how a sample good bill might look and what some of the features we can use to get there look like. So one feature I want to describe is our payment profiles. This is something that lives in our billing settings here within Clio. And when we go through the process of actually setting it up here, we can see that we will create a new payment profile, and we have options now to do things like we have options now to do things like enter a grace period if we want, so that our clients have a period of time to pay before potentially accruing interest. We can add interest. We can choose those interest terms. We have a lot of options. We can add things like an early payment discount so that you can incentivize your clients the way that you actually want to and have that all automatically calculate and show up on your bills. And once that payment profile is created, we can now go through and apply it to a client. And if we just go to the bottom of their settings here, we can see that payment profile we just created, go through the process of applying it here, and then finally update that and now see that it's successfully applied. And when we generate their bills, that will all automatically calculate for us. Another feature I want to talk about is bill themes. So again, this is something that lives within your your billing settings. And when we go into our bill themes, we will be able to take a look at the existing bill themes we have. And we can either add a new bill theme or we can copy a bill theme. Here we'll copy a bill theme. And I will go through and show you what we can do with that once we go through and edit that new bill theme that we created. So we have a whole bunch of options here, but basically what we're doing is customizing that look and the content that we want to see on our bill. So I'll show you an example here of some of the things that we can do when we go ahead and create that. So we'll just give it a name here. And we can see now a highlighted feature of the types of information that will be displayed on that bill. So here is a piece of content that we call the statement of account, which will show you things like the outstanding balance for that entire account, not just for this particular invoice. We can see the new charges that are added. We can see amounts in trust. We can see payments that have been applied. So that's a great way of being able to give your client an upfront description of their overall account status while they're taking a look at their most current bill. And the statement of account, we can just set up here. It's nice and easy to go through all these options, and there's lots and lots of options, not all of which I'll talk about today, but many I can talk about with you afterward if you're interested, or there's lots of articles on our support site that detail all of these detailed pieces. But we can customize things like where we want them to sit. We can customize which pieces of information we want in something like the statement of account, and then we can also choose whether or not we want to show trust matters for the entire bill and account. And then if we make changes, we can see that those update live, so we know exactly what it is we're putting on our bill. And then, of course, those changes save automatically for you, so it's nice and easy, and those just get applied for you, which I'll show you in a minute here as we get into the next stages. So once we have set up all our customization, that kind of flexibility I talked about earlier, now we can get into bulk bill generation. This is where that bulk processing really comes into play. So once we have those activities tracked, we can go into our billable clients here, and we'll see that on our bills page. And we can see how we can filter down to exactly the specific activities that we want to bill for. So here, through our filter, we can go through and just specify August as the date range which we want to bill for. So for those activities, we can now select all of the bills that are associated with that at once and click the Generate button to have it do them en masse for us. And we have a few options we can choose. So we can choose whether we want to see all the details, whether we just want to see a summary, whether we want to aggregate them in a specific way. We have the option to be able to change that bill theme that we just customized. And then we have options to be able to add grace periods through the payment profiles that I talked about. And once all of that is done and we've generated the bills, we now have them done en masse, and we can see this is an example of what a good bill might look like. So we have our statement of account generated here, and at the bottom, I don't have it highlighted, but you can see accurate dates, accurate quantities. We can see nice detailed descriptions so that we know what's going on and our clients know exactly what went on there as well. And this would be an example of a flat rate bill potentially if you wanted to hide all that information and just show that one line item of what it is that you worked on, or those few line items of what it is that you worked on. And it's a nice thing to do as well if you work on flat rate matters to set up specific bill themes, or maybe if you work on both, to set up specific bill themes that will allow you to do one or the other, and then you can just bulk generate one or the other as you need to. So hopefully that will save you a lot of time as well. And here I just have that one flat item highlighted. All right, so now that we've generated our bills, this is where we have the opportunity to go through a process of editing and potentially approving those bills if it's applicable to the workflow of your firm. So I'll talk a little bit about what that editing process looks like. Here we're taking a look at our bills. We've just generated them and they're sitting here in a draft state. And we can go through and edit them as we need to. And live within the description of the bill, if we need to make updates, we can go ahead and do so. So there I updated the quantity from 1.36 to 1.5. And what this is going to do is not only update it on the bill, but it's also going to track all the way back through the system. So all those activities are now updated live for you as well. So you don't need to worry about going back and changing that from a perspective of doing the right tracking and doing the right audit trails that you need. And once we do that, we can save those changes that we made. And now, if we need to go through an approval process, we have all our bills, they're all edited the way we want them to, and we can bulk select those as well, submit them for approval up here, and we have a few other options. So approve is one of them, but we also have approve and apply trust. So if you have trust accounts that are applicable to these bills, there's no need to go through each one individually and figure out what's going on. We can just apply that, and it'll automatically show you the trust amounts that it's going to take and which bills it's going to apply it to, and then choose which account you can have that actually go toward. So that's a really easy way to save a lot of time and a lot of effort in just a couple mouse clicks. So finally, we're there. We've generated our bills. We're happy with them. They're approved. We've got them to the point where we can send them out to the client if there's balances remaining on them. And again, in that theme of doing things en masse, we have the opportunity to select the ones we want to choose the sharing option, and to go ahead and enter any details we want, either via email we can send them or through the secure Clio Connect client portal, add a message if we want to, and now they're gone. And we've finished our billing workflow. So the last thing to talk about is receiving payments. I'm not going to dwell too much on this because, as I mentioned, the Clio payments team is around and can give you a lot more details about that. But I want to walk you through a little bit of the workflow of what that actually looks like for a potential client. So here I have an email that will actually show you an experience that a client might see. because they've set up Clio payments, we see a Pay Online Now button in addition to the invoice that's attached as a PDF. So we can go ahead and click that Pay Online Now button, and that will take the client to a secure payment page where they can enter that detailed information. The amounts are pre-populated as you need them to be. And once that payment is complete, we can actually see that our payments have been recorded. So a manual payment has been recorded in addition to the credit card payment that they just did. So that all happens automatically for you. So you have the opportunity to specify, just to repeat the question in case anyone didn't hear it, it was what happens if you send a client a bill for $7,000 and they say, I can only pay 3 of that. So you have the opportunity to specify a partial payment, and they can continue to pay, and you can continue to record payments on that bill. So it will still show as awaiting payment until that full balance is paid off through whatever channels they need to, be it Clio payments, be it bringing you checks, be it you recording manual payments. And I can touch a little bit more on that in the Q&A section at the end. So just to finish up with the last few things here, so we can see that bill has been recorded as paid now, and we can see that on the bill as well, those payments are recorded as well in the activity summary up at the top here if that client comes back and needs to look at the bill, or you are as well. And that all happens automatically for you. And then in the bottom, you'll see those payments being recorded as well, in addition to things like the early payment terms and other things we set up earlier with our client payment profiles. So the last agenda item I wanted to touch on was post-billing week analysis. So this, I want to kick off with another rhetorical question that I'm not going to spend too much time on, because obviously I like to ask trick questions. And billing week doesn't really end. There is no best time for you to be able to look at the analytics and for you to be able to track the reporting and follow-ups that need to happen as part of your billing process. So a few ways for you to do that include reports like our statement of account that allows you to actually go through and see line by line for each of your clients where their accounts are at. And that's a great way for you to be able to get an overview, but also a great way for you to be able to remind your clients of outstanding bills. We also have our revenue report, which is great to get an overview of firm revenue broken down directly by clients and by matters. So you can get a lot of detail there to get a pulse on how things are actually going within the firm. And then the third report I want to talk about is our Trust Ledger report for those of you that are using Trust. And this allows you to get the details of each of your clients' trust balances within Clio. And that's a great opportunity for you to take this piece of paper and reconcile it with the actual bank accounts that you have in the real world to make sure that your accounting is solid penny for penny. All right, that was a lot of content, but I hope, as I mentioned, I'll love to spend my time on the beach when I get more of it. And I hope for you, and I'll just take some questions right at the end there if that's okay. But I hope now you're sitting on your beach billing island with your billing pina colada. So I'm just going to give you a quick summary here of the things we talked about. One, we talked about a review of Clio's billing philosophies and how we try and approach billing practices. So that's detailed activities, that's bill generation, that's edits and approvals, that's secure sharing. 2, we talked about sample workflows for streamlining your billing workflows in Clio, both hourly and for flat fee. 3, we talked about some tips and tricks to help you save your firm time and get paid quicker. And that includes things like bulk generation, sharing, approval, rate hierarchies, activity categories, and lots more. Now, I just scratched the surface here in terms of a lot of the features that Clio has. So please, I'd encourage you, check out that leads and contingency billing session if it's applicable to you. Spend time on our training site. Come talk to me. Come talk to us at Clio Labs. Come talk to us at the Smart Bar. We're here to help you. We really appreciate your feedback. We appreciate you being here. And I'm here to help, and our team is here to help however we can. So let us know if we can help you with any specific workflows, and let us know if we can point you in the direction of more features that you think might be useful for you. So last, a big thank you to all of you for coming out to this session. Like I said, it's great to see all of you excited about billing, as I am. And yeah, I'll just close off here showing you some of those sessions. Organizing your financials, helping with your bookkeeper, happening right after this. Also diving into data and learning more about reports, happening right after this as well. So you'd have to choose between one of those two. But tomorrow you can attend that session on your best billing workflows with leads and contingency. And that's it.
Let's put our hands together for Alim.
So the question was, is the statement of account what you'd send out to clients who are making partial payments? So the statement of account can be one of the tools that you use to do that. There's lots of different reports within Clio, and I'd be happy to show you a few more maybe after the session. But doing things like having that statement of account on your actual invoice as well, showing all the historical details, but then also providing the context of the current bill in context is a great way to show what that outstanding balance is. But if you want to show the statement of account report that has all of the individual transaction of what's actually happened, that'd be a great opportunity to give them a better picture as well. Yeah. Sorry, we have one
just
more
following
question.
up on the question back there. If
Yeah.
a client has a $7,000 bill
Yeah.
and makes a partial payment,
Yeah.
right? Then how does he get reminded of the rest of the balance? Like, do you have to stop sharing the bill and then share again?
So if the question was, if a client has paid a partial payment on a bill,
Online, yeah.
how would you be able to express to that client the latest amount owing to continue paying off the rest of the bill?
Right.
So there's a couple ways of doing this, but if you've generated a PDF or sent a specific file, that file is locked and won't be changed or updated. But if you send the client the bill through the Clio Connect portal and they actually go through and see that within the app itself, that information will live update and change to show the payments that have actually occurred. So if you're sending it to them via email or through another PDF channel, you'd generate that bill or reshare it with them, at which point it would give them the latest information. Or if you're doing it through the Clio Client Connect portal, you can share it again, but if they go back in and log in, they'll see the most updated information.
Is there a way to track taxable costs for your expenses?
The question was, is there a way to track taxable costs for your expenses?
For the court. So if you go to trial,
Yeah.
you win, you get your taxable costs. Is there a way to tag those costs as being taxable as they're incurred so that you could just run a report at the end that shows what your taxable costs are?
That's a good question. So I'm not 100% sure of the answer on that, but we have our accounting team here as well that's working on some of the aspects of getting these more crucial pieces of accounting nailed down. And I'd love to chat with you a little bit more about that afterward and see if we either have that or if that's something that we have in the plans right now.
When you run a statement, currently it only shows invoices. But if you ask for the trust replenishment, it doesn't show up on the statement also.
Gotcha. So the question was, when you're on an invoice.
On the statements, is there a way to pull in that trust request onto the statement also?
So you have a trust request in addition to potentially
An
invoiceable
invoice,
items as well?
Correct.
Again, I'm not 100% sure if the answer for that. I believe that we can, but let me follow up with you afterward as well and make sure that we know the right way of getting that done for you.
You had you had mentioned flat fee billing over here.
Oh,
See,
where am I
I'm
looking?
hitting my hands up.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
On the flat fee billing,
Yeah.
keeping track of your hours so that you have a count next time you do that same task.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So the way that you would track hours when you're going through a flat rate workflow, generally you would categorize that matter as a flat rate matter, at which point any activities that you enter that have hours associated with them will automatically zero out in terms of their rate. And now all of those hours will be tracked the same way throughout the Clio process. So you can go through and actually see all of them associated with that matter at any given time. And they'll also show up in your reporting as well. And then when you go and generate a bill, you have the option if you either want to show all those $0 hours, but that will aggregate at the flat rate line item that will show up on your bill as well to say that I've done this flat rate work. Did I answer?
Yeah, you did. But when you do the flat fee, when you create a matter that's a flat fee,
Yeah.
it immediately bills that flat fee, correct?
By immediately bills that flat fee, do you mean that
It creates an activity for the full amount of the flat
Yes.
fee immediately.
It will. It will, yes.
And what if you don't finish it in that billing period? And it assumes that you're going to collect it up front.
It assumes that you're going to generate the bill when appropriate for that client. So if that's something that you don't want to generate the bill for because you're not complete with, or you want to generate in a partial stage, then you can either update that activity that it's generated for that flat fee entry, or wait until you're at the period where you're actually ready to bill.
And then you can delete the detail of the activities from the bill before you
Yes,
send it to the client.
exactly. You can aggregate that all and suppress all of those details so that the client just sees the flat rate, and then in the back end, you have all the information to see how you spent your time.
Okay, I have one more question on the statement of account that you showed at the top of the invoice. It had
Yeah.
a trust. Does the trust just for that matter, or is it the trust for the client balance?
You have the option of choosing which of those you want as part of setting up that bill theme. So when you put that statement of account at the top, there were a whole bunch of different calculations, and one of them allowed you to specify which of those you'd like to see. All right, I want to thank you very much for spending your time here with me today. I hope you guys got a few tidbits, and enjoy the rest of your time in your conference here.